Hello, good evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. Can someone write in the chat if they can hear me okay and everything's all right sound-wise? We haven't done this too many times. I think this is only the second real live stream we've done, and the first in almost 3 years. The last one was right before, actually right after the start of the counteroffensive. So it's a new one for us, a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm really excited to be here. Can someone just let me know if the sound is working in the chat? And yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, say where you're from. Stuart from Alberta, good to have you here. As usual with these things, we're going to wait for just a couple of minutes so a few people join. Then we can actually start with the whole program. But thank you for everyone who's here on time. We've got Nico from Brabant in the Netherlands. Ben, all right, this is super exciting. 62 of you here already. Okay, just a few more minutes. I guess most people are here from the Northern Hemisphere. I'm thinking in Australia now, where I'm from. It's probably, you have to be a pretty dedicated fan of the Kyiv Independent to be tuning in at 3 a.m. or whatever it is over there. But yeah, we've got Amsterdam, UK, Tennessee, wonderful, NYC. Yeah, this is the best, I think, kind of transatlantic, North Atlantic time slot that we're going for. Idaho, great. Belgium, Brasov, Miklos Chasar, amazing. Good to have you all here, and I hope your Thursday is all good. We're going to have some interesting chats about the front line, about the battlefield, about where I've been in the last few weeks. Just about a week or two ago, I was out there in Donbass, in Donetsk Oblast, so I can tell you all about what it was like there on the ground, the sights, the smells, things that don't necessarily always make it into our articles. So yeah, all right, we'll just wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Is anyone else getting a crazy echo and repeating? Can someone answer Messel over there about the echo? Okay, no echo. That's great, thank you. Okay, who else have we got? We've got South Africa, so we have got some Southern Hemisphere. Graz, Central Europe, Canada, London, Belgium, Ohio. Martin, member of the Kyiv Independent, that's great. I will be encouraging you all to join our community and become members of the Kyiv Independent if you can. And yeah, we're also going to have a look at some maps of the battlefield. We're going to have a look at a few other things that are, I think, important for understanding where we are in this war at the moment. And some stories from reporting in the field, the good, bad, and the ugly. Miami, Florida, that's great. Okay, we're sitting at, we've got Berlin, Barcelona, great. We could make a Champions League setup from the cities represented. 6-month member of KI, wife from Mykolaiv. Love Mykolaiv. Love southern Ukraine in general. It's a shame I don't get out there so much, but when we were in Kherson for our report on the human safari last November, we stayed in Mykolaiv. Really love being down there. Cologne. Okay. All right, I think we're going to start. I think we've got a solid number of people, and I will say immediately that if you can start getting thinking of your questions about where we are in the war, about the battlefield, and getting ready to send them into the chat, then that will be great. Last thing I'll comment on, my TV just started playing the video of you being chased by the drone team. Yeah, that was a very spontaneous idea for me to try and be chased by these drone pilots and hunted in a tree line, because I've heard drones fly around, and sometimes Russian ones, but not one actually chasing me. And I wanted to feel what that was like. The one thing I was sad about was that as I ran away into the trench, no one thought about putting an SD card in the FPV pilot's goggles. And if they did, you would have seen me like you often see the last few seconds of a Russian soldier's life, uh, you know, right in front of the FPV camera. That would have been quite something, but next time. All right, we're going to get started here. So we've got around 100 people, and I hope more people will still come. Welcome everyone to the I think second ever YouTube live in the history of the Kyiv Independence channel. The last time was back in 2023, when we really hadn't gotten YouTube going the way we had. But now, we've come such a long way. We're almost at 400,000 subscribers, and I think we're all really proud of the way we do video content at this point: short documentaries, explainers, news, frontline reports. And especially we really enjoy reading the comments and seeing how many people our stuff reaches. And so we're going to try this new format today. For those who don't know, my name is Francis Farrell. I am a frontline reporter here at the Kyiv Independent, which is Ukraine's biggest independent Ukrainian language, English language Ukrainian media outlet. I am based in Kyiv, as most of us. And what I do together with my colleagues, videographers, we do most of the frontline coverage of the Kyiv Independent. So you might have seen me in different bunkers, dugouts, hiding from drones, which is something we'll talk about as well. And I'm going to share today about what we think about the war at the moment and the battlefield at a very interesting time for Russia's war against Ukraine. You might, for anyone I think who's been following what's going on lately, you might have you definitely have seen that there's a lot of talk about the tide turning, about the changing of fortunes, about Ukraine taking back the initiative on the front line, about Russia really coming under pressure on the battlefield, and with Ukraine's middle strike campaign and deep strike campaign. And this is especially strange to come in the middle of May, in the middle of spring, and now going into summer. A time when this is usually where, with the better weather and with the arrival of the foliage on the trees, that the Russian offensives really start to pick up the pace. They push, they pressure the Ukrainian defense from all angles in several parts of the front line, and usually the Ukrainian defense, which is solid and brave, but still extremely overstretched at the end of the day, is falling back in one place or another. But now we don't see that. And so on top of the big, kind of amazing narrative, emotional based events, like, for example, the other day when Ukraine struck St. Petersburg, struck this refinery and a ship right on the first day of the really kind of increasingly pathetic St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. That's one thing, and it's good to be very happy about that. But it's also, most importantly, is still what's going on the front line. What are the dynamics? What are who really has the upper hand? And it's these things together which really put together this extremely, well, I would maybe not extremely, but increasingly positive picture. So As I mentioned earlier, just a few minutes ago, just about 2 weeks ago, I was on the front line. I was in Donetsk Oblast, especially in Donbass, reporting near Slavyansk first, then near Kostiantynivka, and then finally in the increasingly embattled city of Dobropilya, doing 3 pretty intense day-long embeds with the military, with drone teams, and also walking like right through the kill zone near Kostiantynivka, which is now, I think, probably the main hotspot of the front line. So looking forward to share some stories from there. Some quick housekeeping before we continue. This is going to be about an hour long. That's the plan. And very much encourage you to send questions into the chat. I'm going to try and get to all of them if that's a manageable task. And yeah, whenever you think of something that interests you about the battlefields on any level, ask the question. I do want to mention another thing we're doing at this point is we're in the middle of a big campaign to get 4,000 new members of the Kyiv Independent community. For those who may not know, the reason that we call ourselves and that we can call ourselves independent is that because we are funded by our readers. The vast majority of our revenue comes from our readers, not from some kind of billionaire, some kind of grants from who knows where, or businessmen or governments who might push their own agenda. So if you want to join our community, if you appreciate everything we do, we don't have paywalls, whether it's our video coverage, our war crimes investigations, or our news on our website, please consider joining that community. All right, let's jump straight in. So first, before we get to the questions, I want to give a quick overview of the front line and explain what is the core of this understanding that we're in a good place right now. We had the commander of the Third Army Corps, Andriy Beletsky, saying that basically this is the strongest position Ukraine has been in the war, in his opinion, since autumn 2022, which was where we had these big, very successful counteroffensives. And that was actually when I started working at the Kyiv Independent. I started with the happiest stories of big liberated territories, of people coming out and basically, out of months of Russian occupation, walking the streets of their city without fear for the first time. And now we're in a similar place. And to explain why, I want to show you a graph, which I think is the most important kind of indicator of where we are in the war today. So let's have a look at how this works. I'm going to go to Telegram, and here I'm sharing my screen, and I'm sharing, this is, if you don't know Deep State, this is a Ukrainian analytical and mapping kind of OSINT collective, and you probably know about Deep State from Deep State Map, which is the most, trusted map, I think I would say, not only in Ukraine, but in the entire information space. And they also write analysis. And what they've done here, I'll translate in Ukrainian, it says dynamics of occupation by month. And so each of these bars, these red bars, are measuring how much new territory Russia has occupied per month. It starts, back here we've got 2024, here we've got 2025, and 2026. And you can see, traditionally there was a bit of a stabilization in winter here. There was back in winter in early 2024. But usually in spring here, we've got summer and spring and summer, then autumn. That's the time when Russia really, picks up the pace. And instead here, this is the last month. So this is by far the least amount of the lowest amount of territory that Russia has occupied on the battlefield of Ukraine for years and years of this war. And that follows, consistently lower than average figures for 2026. So they're not getting anywhere right at the time when they should be picking up the pace. So that's our starting point, I think. It is, of course, worth remembering that measuring the territory taken is pretty difficult. I did a whole text and a video about that, which I can maybe our colleagues can link to in the chat as well. But this is not a coincidence. Russia's assaults along the front line are just increasingly unsuccessful. And you can see, if you look back to 2 years ago, to 1 year ago, they were still pretty regularly trying mechanized assaults to overwhelm the Ukrainian defense. Then they were going forward in small groups of infantry, but still, maybe 10 infantrymen at a time. Then it was 6 at a time. And by mid 2025, they were just taking too many losses that they reduced it to usually 1 or 2 Russian infantrymen moving forward with a focus on stealth and infiltration. And that was working a little bit. They had some success, especially near Dobropilya last summer. But now, even that just seems to be not working. The kill zone is too transparent. There are too many drones in the air, spotting them way before they even reach the front line. And then really effective Ukrainian drone teams using especially first-person view FPV drones to hunt them. And you can't, reduce the number more than 1 or 2. At that point, there's nowhere left to go. And Russia's still trying. They're still taking, huge losses. That figure hasn't gone down, but they're just having less and less success. But this is a big topic. So before I continue, I think I want to jump into some questions. One question I'd like to start with was about reporting on the front line, how our reporting itself has changed, has gotten more difficult in the era of drones. And the main question, the main thing that affects that is the kill zone, is the fact that the distance may be 10 kilometers away from the front line used to be a place where you feel pretty safe. You can get out of the car, you can park your car. And now anything less than 20 kilometers is an area where your car could be hit by an FPV drone. And what that means is that to stay safe, yes, you need to do your hostile environment training, your tactical medicine training. Yes, you need to understand the sounds of different drones and what to do if you hear them. But first and foremost it comes down to your relationship with the military. Them understanding from you that you can be trusted, that we're a small, compact team with experience in the combat zone. And we, listen to the way the soldiers talk, the way they talk about, what's flying around in the sky at the moment, what's the risk profile at different distances from the front line. And with that trust, we have the ability to work effectively with them. They have to work in this kill zone every day, so they're very much interested in staying alive. But if we see that combined with professionalism, with good planning, we can be pretty confident that if we embed with them and if we kind of basically hand over our responsibility for our lives to them, that they will do the right thing and protect us while protecting themselves as well. Let's go into some questions from the chat, so we can start making progress with them. I'm going to start from the first ones who asked, what is the situation with Kupiansk? That's a great question. So Kupiansk, we covered this extensively towards the back end of last year. Firstly, around August and September, I was with some units fighting there. And that was at the time when everything was going wrong. When the Russians, they were coming through these big pipelines, they were infiltrating through the forest, across the river. And once they broke into the city itself, They basically, they infiltrated, they caused chaos. They couldn't be all spotted and killed effectively. And meanwhile, all of the logistics going into that area was being cut off by a really, really strong Russian drone presence. So, we can have a look at the map if we want to talk about Kupiansk. If we go back to what the situation was like last autumn, you could see this kind of major infiltration going into the city here, even though they were on the other side of the river, and logistics should have been difficult for them. But they had the pipelines, they had infiltration tactics, and in this forest, they had a lot of drones just, causing a lot of trouble for Ukrainian logistics here, let alone on the other side of the river. But then in December, what we saw was a very effective kind of counterattack by a special battalion tactical group formed by Ukraine's Khartia Corps, basically one of the strongest brigades, bringing extra drone and extra assault elements from other units. And in a very successful operation, what they did here was cut off this corridor that the Russians had west of the river. And at the same time, they've been spotting the exits that the Russians have been using from the pipelines. And so that's been really really amazing, the way they've been doing that. And since then, it's still been incredibly difficult to actually effectively clear the rest of these Russian soldiers from that area. You can see it's taken a long time. As of April, a little bit more has been cleared. Since then, I'll just scroll through Deep State here. Since then, and this is a very approximate kind of description, kind of depiction of the front line. I believe they've done more to clear this Russian presence from the middle, but it looks Ukrainian controlled, but it's still very difficult to actually reach that area and clear it on the ground. It's still old school, kind of on the ground CQB building clearing that has to be done. But now it's stable. That was the good thing about Kupiansk, that it really just stabilized that part of the front line, and it went together with the propaganda victory, right? Because Putin had said that it was basically taken already. Right. Next, can you chat a little bit about the effects of the growth impact of unmanned drones units on the front line lately? Well, that is basically everything. That's the most important question about how the war is changing. And with every year, every month, we see new developments. We see an increasing saturation of drones. We see that kill zone stretching further and further, because you can see there, we as journalists have never had to do this before, but we were forced to hike 10 kilometers or about 6 miles just one way, and then come back along this main highway as close as we could get to Konstantinivka. And in doing so, and the reason we were hiking was because we couldn't take a car, because all vehicles were being hit by drones. And along that artery, that logistical kind of artery, we were really seeing what this kill zone looks like, and how drones have changed it, what it's like to move around. Just as an example, like, we love to make fun of the Russians for driving around on scooters, or having special soldiers designated as donkeys just to move logistics by foot. But that's happening on the Ukrainian side now. And it's not because they've run out of vehicles, it's because the danger of drones is too high to send vehicles, to send unmanned, like these ground robots. And so we did see people, pushing little carts with logistics packets. We did see Ukrainian soldiers on scooters. And when the road is nice, it's a great way to get around. And and the question and just going forward, I think more and more you're going to see more drones. You're going to see more autonomous drones. You're going to see more drones flown by Starlink, hundreds of kilometers away, and that frontline gray zone, which is increasingly being depopulated. There's almost no one there. Ukraine from places, infantry is often not really there anymore. We're just going to see a continuation of that process. Does Ukraine have plans for how to remove all the fiber optic cables from the east side of Ukraine so it can be returned to normal use after the war? I don't think so. I think that is a problem that we look at when we get to it. At the moment, I mean, I was tangled in that fiber optic cable just trying to go to the toilet when I was on a drone position. So that was the first time I really viscerally saw how much of this stuff was like shimmering in the sunlight. But for now, it's too early. Sometimes people come to me with these kind of environmental questions, but at the moment, the first aim, and it's looking like it's working, is stopping the war, and that's done by stopping Russia. And we see from the map how much of this previously very, very fertile land is now just gone completely unharvested. We know how much industry, coal mines have been destroyed by the war, but for now that remains priority number one, and then we'll get to that when we get to it. Next question. I did have coming from social media that we wanted to have a look at. Since when are you in Ukraine? Okay. Can people hear me? I just had to reload the screen. Apologies for that. Seems like we are back. Okay. Yeah, okay, we're back. Awesome. Let's not waste any more time. Apologies for that. Next question. Yeah, it was just I understood that I needed to be here. Journalism was the best fit, and I joined the Kyiv Independent in summer 2022. And since then, bit by bit, Ukraine has become my home. I now speak Ukrainian in work, in life, in my relationship, and it's a beautiful place. And I very much recommend you all come and visit before or after Ukraine wins the war. Now, let's go try and get back to the start. We talked about fiber optic cable. We talked about Kupiansk. Do we have the opportunity to talk with civilians still living close to the battlefield or in the gray zone, and what do they have to say? We do, but it's a lot more difficult than it used to be, because before this drone saturated kill zone where Russia targets anything that moves, including journalists, humanitarian aid workers, you could come really close to the front line and do something about these civilians who live in this gray zone. And you could do that, sometimes driving by yourself, sometimes going with volunteers. And now that's basically it's almost impossible, and it's so unsafe that it's really stupid. And I know people who've been targeted as aid workers, and so now if you want to talk to civilians, you need to kind of go into those areas still with the military, and that's what we did when we were in Pokrovsk. We were, I think, the last foreign language kind of media to travel into Pokrovsk when it was already surrounded on three sides, and it was similar on this trip that we did to Kostiantynivka and almost Kostiantynivka, and to Dobropilya, which because of Russia's intense glide bomb campaign is now more destroyed than Pokrovsk itself was when we visited there. the civilians there are not a accurate or sample of the people of Donbass. At this point, if you look at Pokrovsk, when we were there, it was probably about 5% of the population that was still there. And those, there are some stereotypes that those people are pro-Russian. They're waiting for Russian forces. Sometimes that is maybe part of the answer, and we do hear some kind of comments, but more so, these are people who are just really holding on to their homes. Because they have nothing else. They don't have, they don't have savings. They don't have a support network. They don't have anywhere they would have to go. And the Ukrainian state's efforts to support internally displaced people still leave a lot to be desired. And at the same time, they get used to these conditions of living. They get used to just constant bombardment, drones, glide bombs, artillery. The civilization services disappearing. They live in their basements, and eventually, they kind of lose connection to reality. And so sometimes one person on the last trip kind of told us, things are not as bad as it seems, while there are destroyed vehicles on the roadside and just drones constantly in the air. It's an interesting, obviously an important dimension of this war, but it's more and more difficult to report on. And there are a lot of things that just keep coming up again. This connection to one's home. Okay, what is next? What is morale currently like on the front lines? We get this question a lot. I think it's depends a lot on what your job is in the military and where you are and what unit you are in. It's important to say that in the Ukrainian military at the moment, we have the majority of people who are mobilized, sometimes forcefully, sometimes from the streets. That does happen, although Russian propaganda tries to make it seem worse than it is. And their morale is going to be a product of what their job is and what how their unit treats them. If they're sent to the infantry without having much choice in the matter, they're obviously going to be less motivated. The infantry are now living in conditions that are completely kind of beyond the realm of what you and I could understand. Sometimes spending hundreds of days out there on position. But then there are, the people who volunteered, the people who went, with a very clear idea of, this is something I need to do. This is my national duty. And if I don't help stop the Russians, over there in Donbass, they're going to come to my home. But even those people, they're tired, they're burnt out, they're exhausted. But at the same time, they have a clear understanding that now is not the time to let go. They are kind of in this kind of death grip of continuing to work, because they understand what happens if we all just go home, we all just let go. And now finally, maybe with the Russian forces slowing down, that could be paying off. Any recent frontline stories you heard that really moved you or your team? Well, I can share, I guess, a bit of a maybe darker story is that we were in Dobropilya not too long ago, just 2 weeks ago, a city where it doesn't seem that close to the front line. It's not kind of semi-surrounded like Pokrovsk was, but it's being increasingly flattened by Russian glide bombs, hunted from all directions by Russian drones, and the position we were on was destroyed by Russian glide bombs about a week after we went. And at first, the press officer told us that 2 of the guys we were there with, including one guy who we talked a lot to, were killed, while the pilot had been changed on the shift. Then it turned out that one of them actually also rotated out, and so it was only one of them who we met and who we, broke bread with, that was killed later. And he was actually the cook of the really amazing frontline borscht that we were eating there. He was a man of not many words, but he was very happy to cook for us and see us eat. And unfortunately, maybe he might have survived the initial explosion, but there's just no way. You see the emergency services after a missile strike in Kyiv, pulling apart the debris and rescuing people, but that's not possible when everything that's out in the open is hunted by drones. Sorry to make it like that, but that's one of the things that happens when you're out there, right on positions. It's not the first time, even right before a report, that we've heard from the press officers at the place we were with was killed. Next, when I missed, does Philip Malzahn still work with the Kyiv Independent? No, Philip's a friend of mine. I haven't met him for a while, but he doesn't work for us. He works for United 24, the English language media from the Ukrainian state. But yeah, he's done some amazing frontline work as well. Next, what's the situation in Pokrovsk? Seemed like Ukraine not finished inflicting casualties on Russians there. Well, Russia has taken Pokrovsk and now is trying to move out and move forward. Ukraine was trying to hold some last streets in the top of the city for a very long time. But now that they've taken it, it's obviously a great kind of fortress now to attack from, because they can, they can gather forces there. They can put a lot of antennas on top of the buildings to give their drones excellent line of sight. And Ukraine has to defend the low-lying fields northwest of Pokrovsk, but they haven't actually made it very far since then. And that's one of the testaments to the Ukrainian defense, that even in this area where they clearly, have the unfavorable terrain, Russia still, they took the next village that's still contested, Hrishina, but Russia's still not making it much further. And obviously beyond Pokrovsk, you have the first really big new lines of Ukrainian fortifications that I've seen for myself in person. I've had the person who built them around Pokrovsk describe them to me and explain how they work. And what they do is, instead of being small bunkers for people to hide in, like the previous fortifications, which were not very effective, they're just long, continuous lines of anti-tank ditches, barbed wire, sometimes mines as well, dragon's teeth, that just completely, they widen the kill zone, and they even cut down the tree lines that are touching those fortified lines, so that there's just this incredible physical barrier that the Russian, individual and soldiers have to cross to advance. And I think we haven't seen it yet, but they're going to have a very difficult time. Is it true that Magyar Péter succeeded in obtaining crucial rights for the Hungarian minority in Ukraine, and by this, Ukraine is a step closer to the EU? That's not usually my beat, but if you did see on our channel, I did a story from the elections because I am part Hungarian. That is the news, that they came to a deal straight away. Turns out that if you are not clearly an agent, working very directly in the interests of Russia, it's possible to make a deal even about difficult things like the minority rights of the Hungarians in Ukraine. And we hope that's going to be the first step to a lot more cooperative policy from Budapest, I think, towards Kyiv. Do you think Ukraine-Russian relations will normalize as a society in your lifetime, or be similar to India-Pakistan situation where two neighbors view each other as a long-term existential threat? Well, Ukraine has never been an existential threat to Russia. It might seem now that it's a threat to Putin and his regime, but Ukraine never had territorial designs on Russia. And thanks to the Budapest Memorandum, gave up its nuclear weapons as well. Anything about NATO bringing missiles to surround Russia from is complete nonsense. Relations can normalize only if something happens in Russia. Well, firstly, they lose the war, and then something similar happens to Germany after 1945. I think that those comparisons are completely appropriate, and only if you see a complete collapse of that regime and then a huge period of reckoning and reparations, transitional justice, that's when the only chance you can have even a slight kind of conversation about that. We picked one of the amazing success stories of this spring, Ukraine's middle strike campaign. The most effective drones in this middle strike range, which is usually what we call like between 30, 40, between the end of the FPV range and about 150 to 200 kilometers. That's middle strike. Ukraine has been very successful with drones. This used to be the zone of the HIMARS, but HIMARS are limited. They're getting jammed. They worked very well, but now Ukraine is using drones, and there are two drones that are particularly effective here. It's the Hornet, which is made by the company started by the co-founder of Google, Eric Schmidt. It's called Perennial Autonomy, and it's an incredibly cost-effective, but incredibly smart, small but long-range drone with AI targeting. And it's these Hornets which have been basically modified with Starlink terminals to make communication with them not a problem. They're unjammable. And these are the drones you've been seeing hunting those logistics routes, going to Mariupol, to Donetsk, and causing a lot of problem with fuel availability in the occupied territories with Russian logistics. This is only the beginning. We need to see, how this middle strike campaign is going to kind of evolve, because Russia will obviously look to adapt. They'll put up nets. They'll have mobile fire teams. They'll do all kinds of things. The other one is the FP2, which is the larger warhead version of Firepoint's long-range FP1 drone. While Hornet is designed for flying a long way and targeting logistics in a very smart way, the FP2 has a big warhead, and it just slams into high-value targets like air defense systems, command posts, and sometimes even ships, helicopters, that kind of thing. And it's been very, very effective, and probably a big reason why, if you've got so many issues with your logistics in the rear, why they're having trouble to move forward on the very front line dimension. All right, before I have a look for some more questions, I do want to remind you that a big reason we're doing this stream today is because we are in the middle of this campaign to get 4,000 new members of our community. Those are the people who pay about the price of a cup of coffee per day and make everything that we do possible. We always want to do our work bigger and better, whether that's video, documentaries, news, all kinds of journalism, especially, for me, that's important for our frontline trips. So if you do appreciate what we do, if you could join our community, and hopefully I'll see a lot more of you. We have Q&As like this for our members regularly. We'll do one soon as well. So it would be great to see some new faces there. Let's have a look. Why doesn't Budanov always look so grim and never smile? He's leaning into this personality at this point. People started pointing it out, and I think it's becoming like a challenge for him to continue. I remember I spoke to him once at a press conference. There was a lot of people crowding him, and I was right up the front with my little phone. And I remember I asked him a question and I was holding my phone and he didn't know where to look, whether to look in my eyes or look at the phone. And he was kind of doing this double take. And I felt pretty proud of, kind of shaking him up a bit. Um, Okay, how close are the UA drone teams to deploying autonomous drones that seek and destroy targets? Well, I mean, there's a lot of last mile delivery technology. There's a lot of AI target identification and lock-in technology already out there on Ukrainian drones. It always has, for now, a human in the loop. It doesn't make sense not to have a human in the loop, even if you didn't have those ethical concerns, which Russia or China obviously doesn't have. But it just doesn't make sense because you want to be seeing what you're targeting. Obviously this autonomy is going to be the next paradigm shift in warfare that might come around very soon. But not quite soon enough for the immediate short-term developments of the Russia-Ukraine war that we're seeing right now. I think that's coming up. We know everyone's working on these swarms of small drones, those that can just spot people or targets and hunt them autonomously. We know some things about how both Russia and Ukraine make networks where drones communicate with each other, partly using AI. I'm not an expert in the really technical side of things, but we're not quite there yet when it comes to, for example, drones hunting people autonomously. That is some Black Mirror shit. That's very. I'm not sure if I should say that kind of thing, but it's very much around the corner. All right. What is next? What is being done to harness local labor and resources to rebuild Ukrainian housing, since foreign money will be scarce to rebuild what the UN says is around $90 billion. That is not my specialty. Reconstruction, that kind of thing. I have not done a story about that, and I think it's important not to pretend you know stuff that you don't. For that, we have our business desk. My colleague and friend Dominic Culverwell reports on that kind of thing. Once again, I think we understand that Ukraine is very much dependent on foreign money, on EU funds specifically, to just exist as a state. And I think that's an open secret. That's why this $90 billion euro loan. Okay, are we back? Apologies. Cruise missiles can be shot down by the less advanced systems, and also by F-16s, which do a lot of work. That's the main job at this point, because neither side can have air superiority along the front line, but the F-16s do really important work when there are these mass missile attacks flying all through the Ukrainian rear and taking out these cruise missiles. All right. Leader of a platoon I helped was killed. Body still behind enemy lines near Siversk. I was near Slavyansk near summer. Planned return for resilience training. How bad is the situation? In March, it looked like the Russian advances there were really threatening. They were getting close to Slavyansk, and that's why we went there in March for one of our frontline trips. And you can see the video, you can see the report on our website. But since then it has stabilized. The issue there was that the brigades that were fighting there were just really, really exhausted. They weren't getting reinforcements because they were stable. So Ukraine was prioritizing other areas. But after a while, when Russia started to push there a bit more, they found that they were having success because the units there, were so exhausted. Since then, they've got some reinforcements. They've had the assault forces trying to fight the fires and clear some of the infiltrations. Now it seems like that area has stabilized for now, although Slavyansk is now in FPV range. And I think it's quite likely that before year's end, we will see more advances, more activity in that area. Hi, on one hand, we keep hearing how close Russia is to collapse, riding donkeys, how assured their defeat is. Our military leaders in Western Europe harp on our lack of readiness. Why? Good question. I think when we hear about how close Russia is to collapse, and we see the riding donkeys as evidence of that, I think that's where we need to be careful, because that's where we kind of let the emotion war, the narrative war, the information war kind of take over a kind of cold and nuanced analysis of the war of attrition between Russia and Ukraine, which has just been grinding on for years and years. And at some points in that war of attrition, it seems like Russia was getting the upper hand. They could see their advances were speeding up. Ukraine, with this kind of chronic manpower crisis, was struggling to hold all of the front line. And but now we're in a better position. Western Europe and NATO countries are not ready. That's the other thing, though. And we saw, and this is a story that just came out on our YouTube channel last week. We spoke to those Ukrainian drone pilots who played the role of the enemy, of OPFOR, which is basically, obviously, Russia with their own drones, and once again completely destroying NATO units in a war game in Sweden. And so both of those things, I think, can be true. We're in a point which is now perhaps extremely dangerous for NATO's eastern flank. I would be feeling a bit nervous if I was a Baltic country right now, because Russia is increasingly getting stuck in Ukraine. But at the same time, NATO itself, in terms of the strength, the political strength of the alliance, is weaker than ever, and this technological difference with Russia understanding how to fight the war of the future, the drone war, and NATO having no idea how to do it, no experience doing it, makes NATO increasingly vulnerable. Okay. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for still being here despite the little freezes. That really means a lot. And so for that reason, I think it's worth continuing for a little bit more, so we get all the questions at least in the stream. Is there anything people like you who work on the front line do to guard your own mental health? Good question. Well, first, I think maybe people say you shouldn't do this, but I think it does humble me to be with Ukrainian soldiers and to witness who they are and what they're going through. And maybe people will say you shouldn't say that someone always has it worse, but I think really, like, if these people are still fighting for years and years, not seeing their family, sacrificing themselves, their loved ones, not their loved ones, but they're often losing their friends, their brothers in arms. If they're still doing it, then I should still be doing it. I shouldn't be burnt out, and I should just keep going. I think this job requires a bit of a balance between being vulnerable and emotional and empathetic on one hand. That's important for speaking to people, for connecting with them, but also you need to be a little bit cool and strong inside. I'm lucky that nothing really traumatic has happened to me. I'm lucky that I have a very supportive network of people at home in Kyiv, including my cat from Bakhmut, who I love very much, and that helps a lot for mental health. Otherwise, we'll figure out the rest of it, I guess, on the other end of the tunnel. Okay, let's have a look. Any other questions. I have not met soldiers from the Georgian Legion, but it would be very interesting. And speaking of that, do you think Russia will attack the South Caucasus? Uh, I don't think so. At the moment, the two countries in the South Caucasus that actually border Russia, the Georgia and Azerbaijan, have pretty friendly relations with Russia, and I don't think that that is worth doing for them. They could cause a lot of problems in Armenia, which used to be the most pro-Russian and is now the most democratic and pro-European of the South Caucasus countries. But I think if Russia was looking for somewhere else to go, it would probably, the big question for them is the confrontation with the West. And if they can't succeed in Ukraine, they might be looking at the Baltic states. All right, what else have we got here? HARP is a great UK nonprofit working to rebuild houses in eastern Ukraine. Yes, I can second that. They do amazing work in places where other organizations simply wouldn't be there at all. Are the drone pilots treated like celebrities by the public? Oh, I like this one. Well, they're not yet, because there's so many of them. There are so many like amazing drone pilots, and I've had the chance, to be on a lot of different drone positions, but in a lot of different units, in a lot of different areas. But there are some which really should be celebrities. They're really they have this feel of like the flying aces of World War II, or like the top snipers, like this Finnish guy in the Winter War. Like they have, just their skill in piloting these drones is responsible. They have kill counts, as crude as that sounds, that range in the hundreds, and I think some people have probably crossed 1,000, probably. And when you see the way they hunt individual Russian soldiers, moving forward, the way they just, they go again, another drone. The one guy we were with, just on the last trip, he chose to spend more time on positions and less time resting, because he just loved his work so much. And I think they should be celebrities, and I think they will, if they get the right kind of treatment. But there's a lot of self-promotion as well, and so a lot of the people who are celebrities are the ones who make an effort to run a big Instagram for themselves. In addition to, and then they get more coverage from outside, where some of those who do the most work and who have the most amazing stories, might not get any credit because they're kind of humble. Okay. Anything else? We have looked at sanction loopholes in the EU. We do have investigative reporters who do that kind of thing as well. A lot related to Chinese firms as well. So maybe our work mainly from YouTube, but if you're interested in that, do look at the investigative part of our website. I was asked if I wanted to show my cat from Bakhmut. If anyone's interested in that, I can do that for you. Trying to find a good picture. I think there he is outside. I don't want to be that guy who just shows more and more cat pictures. Okay, if I've missed anyone's question, then you can maybe write it again. Does anyone take care of the pets people leave behind in the kill zone or when they flee their homes? Very often soldiers do. They take them with them. Because those pets often, they come into soldiers' positions and they hang out in their dugouts, and they help the mental health of the soldiers, and they get attached and they take them with them. But of course, at the same time, some are left behind, and that's always one of the things that hurts a lot when you're out there, when you see that. and it's heartbreaking. More casualties from Russia's war. I was very glad that my cat was taken out. He was actually born in a basement where a soldier friend of mine was living in Bakhmut, and he loved cats, and so he made sure that the whole cat family got out, and I took the black one. All right. Something about Budanov and Zelensky. Are they rivals? Maybe. They're both very strong personalities, and Zelensky doesn't tend to be too happy when someone's too popular and too much of a strong personality high up in his inner circle. But yeah, the inner court politics is not also my beat. I like to just focus on the struggle itself. Okay, do you think Ukraine will be able to fully take back the ground all the way to the sea? I know the drones disturbing Russian transports to Crimea, but can you cut the way completely? Good question. Maybe this is one we can finish up on about the future of this war, right? Where we're going. Because basically, since Trump arrived, the front line was already, in a pretty difficult place then. But the effect of losing that support from the U.S. Made it feel like Ukraine was in a very, very difficult position. It was not about counteroffensives and victory and justice. It was just about surviving and about having a peace with a sustainable, with a sovereign, independent Ukraine intact. And that was part of the reason why, Kyiv decided back in March last year that our policy is going to be, ceasefire. We just want a 30-day ceasefire to show that we're ready for peace. We want the war to stop, and Ukrainians do want the war to stop, and to show that Russia is the one that doesn't want to stop, that wants to continue its war. And what happened? Well, yes, the US basically stopped supporting, Ukraine with large amounts of funding. They still support with intelligence. They sell their weapons to Europe, but Ukraine held. And now Ukraine is holding, not only holding the strongest it has been recently, but it's also been causing a lot of problems for Russia at the middle strike depth and at the deep strike depth. We haven't talked too much about it, but these refineries, these airfields, these big targets further away, and that's raising the cost of war for Putin. And the big moment that we're going to come up to, I think probably towards the end of this year, is where Vladimir Putin must make a pretty simple decision about whether to double down on the war, have large-scale force mobilization in Russia, completely upturn the economy and the society onto an intense war footing, which he really, really doesn't want to do. This whole time he's been waging his war, dedicating a lot of resources to it, but still prioritizing the image of him back in Russia as this strong, charismatic leader who provides Russia with greatness, strength, but also stability, and that people in Moscow or Nizhny Novgorod or St. Petersburg, they're not forced to be a part of this war. I think push comes to shove, he will go down that route, but Ukraine's hope is that at that point he wants to wind down his war, and at that point Ukraine might be in a position to go on the offensive as well, but that's going to change. That's going to be a result of their changing policy. I do think large-scale counteroffensives are going to be really difficult for Ukraine to succeed in achieving. It's not clear where would be the best place to attack at this point. I think a lot of this, increased drone saturation on both sides is generally more favorable to the defender, which is part of why we've seen Ukraine stabilize their defense. But if they were to attack, then it would be very costly. But that could change, a few months of really attriting Russia's logistics, attriting Russia's drone teams. That could change, and then it will be up to Ukraine to decide what to do next. In general, maybe this is something you can take to your conversations with other people. The way I would describe it is that peace talks don't exist and they don't matter. It's not about the negotiations themselves. It's about the real balance of power between the two sides. And that balance of power is what will ultimately define the result of this war, whether it comes through peace talks or not. Okay, that was about retaking all the way back to the sea. Is it realistic to think that the Kerch Bridge can be taken down, or at least not easily used? Yeah, maybe. If there's enough of this basically attrition of an exhaustion of Russian air defense to the point where that's always been a target that's been extremely heavily defended by Russian air defense and a lot of barriers in the sea from the sea drones. But if they're really starting to struggle with that, it could become more and more feasible. It's really difficult to destroy a bridge. It needs a lot of explosives that's not really compared to the drones that Ukraine has. But if it's enough mass, then maybe. Any update on peace plan? You're gonna lose Donbass, etc. Right. Well, I was in Donbass just 2 weeks ago, and Russia is not really having any success moving forward in that area. So good luck with that. I wonder if it would be if you'd be ready to join the attempt to take Donbass. Okay, any more questions? I think maybe on that note, we will end one more time. It's been a real pleasure to be here with you. I think your support, whether it's in the comments or here in the stream, it really means a lot for us. Trying to still report from this war in increasingly difficult conditions. If you want to really help us to do that and to improve our coverage, to make it bigger and better, and just to be able to survive as independent media in Ukraine, once again, now is a great time to join us, to join our community, to become a member, and it will be really, really nice to have more of you on board there. Okay, one more question about body armor. I've seen many people with kinds of makeshift armor. It's getting better, but there's less focus on the big plates and the grades of stopping certain caliber bullets, because the most important thing now is to protect yourself from FPV drone, shrapnel. Most people don't see a firefight in their service. Okay, I should stop looking for more questions because we can go on forever, but very much looking forward to continue being here for you, to continue reporting for you, and in the case of those of you who might become members, to see you again maybe soon in our next member Q&A. Thank you. If you have any more feedback, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to do more of these in the future. And whether you are in Europe or in the US or in South Africa or someone in Australia or New Zealand at 3 a.m. in the morning, it's been a real pleasure and an honor to be here with you. Thanks. I don't know how to finish these, but I think I'll just end it right now. Have a lovely day, everyone.